You don't have to be strong all the time. Not here. Not with me.
In an old corner of Florence, nestled between a flower shop and a forgotten stationery store, there stood a modest little bakery. The kind of place where the scent of rising dough mingled with the distant sound of church bells. On a rainy autumn morning, Ethan Marlowe chose the window seat as his quiet refuge. He was a well-known man, the kind you see in magazines, the mastermind behind one of Europe's most innovative pharmaceutical companies. But no one there seemed to notice, and even if they had, he wouldn't have cared. In front of him, a coffee sat untouched. Its steam had long faded, and in the dark liquid, a tired man's reflection stared back, eyes heavy, soul heavier. 2 days ago, he buried his grandmother, the last person who still asked him in a soft voice and wrinkled hands, "Are you happy?" She never cared about numbers, stock prices, or awards. Just that simple question. And now, with her gone, so was that one thing that grounded him. The bakery buzzed gently with life. Light chatter, the clink of cups, the soft chime of the wooden door. People came and went, oblivious to the storm inside Ethan's chest, until suddenly a small voice shattered the stillness. "Are you sad, mister?" He looked up and saw a little girl, no older than 4, holding a half-eaten slice of cake. Her yellow dress twirled around her knees, cheeks flushed with warmth, and curls slightly messy. She wasn't shy. She wasn't curious about who he was. She was just honest. Ethan hesitated. His face, used to the stiffness of boardrooms and silence of elevators, softened. Her question wasn't small talk. It was real. "A little," he answered, his voice barely above a whisper. "My mum says cake helps," she said, offering him a piece of her own. He almost laughed, almost. But the gesture, small, unfiltered and sincere, moved something deep inside him. Her name was Luna, and when her mother called her back from the other table, he saw her, Clara, young, blonde, with tired grace in her posture and kindness in her eyes. She mouthed an apology, and Ethan simply nodded. No words were exchanged, but something passed between them, a quiet understanding. The next day, Ethan returned. Same table, same coffee. Luna rushed over with a crayon drawing and handed it to him. "For the coffee man," she beamed. He folded it gently and tucked it into his wallet like something sacred. And it was. Clara treated him like any other customer. Polite, warm, and distant in a respectful way. It wasn't that she didn't recognize him. She simply didn't care who he was. And that made him stay. Her lack of pretense made the air feel easier to breathe. One morning, Luna tripped on the stone steps outside. Before Clara could reach her, Ethan was already there. He knelt, gently wiped her hands with a white handkerchief, then pulled a tiny, gold heart-shaped sticker from his wallet. "This is for the bravest kids," he said softly. "Crying is okay, but brave ones always get back up." Luna nodded seriously, then wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. Clara stood in the doorway, holding her breath. She wasn't just watching a man comfort her daughter. She was seeing someone hold her as if she mattered, gently, like something fragile and precious. After that day, Ethan became part of the bakery's quiet rhythm. He never imposed, never demanded, just showed up. And Luna, every time, waved like he was family. Sometimes she'd bring him crayon doodles of cats, stars, or sunny skies, always signed to Mr. Coffee Man. He never corrected her. He kept them all. Clara remained cautiously warm. She noticed the way he subtly helped, moving chairs out of her path when she carried trays, watching Luna when she was busy, never asking for anything in return. Slowly, the walls around her began to lower. She started to see more than the suit. She saw a man who noticed things most people missed. Then came the envelope. A thick letter slid under Clara's apartment door, stamped with a legal firm's seal. Her heart sank. Matteo. Luna's biological father, the man who vanished when pregnancy became real. Now, years later, he wanted custody, either shared or full. His tone was cruel, the threat unmistakable. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. Luna, safe in her room with pink blankets and storybooks, remained blissfully unaware. But Clara's world was cracking. She said nothing to Ethan. He had done too much already. He had a reputation to maintain, a company to lead, a life she didn't want to complicate. So she smiled through it. She worked, laughed with Luna, and hid the tremble in her hands. But Ethan noticed. He always noticed. A few days later, he saw her sitting alone on a park bench near the bakery, face buried in her palms, shoulders shaking in quiet sobs. She thought no one could see her. He did. Without a word, he sat beside her, offered a clean handkerchief and a bottle of water. She looked up, startled, mascara smudged, eyes red. "I'm fine," she said automatically. He didn't argue, didn't try to fix, just sat with her in the silence. "You don't have to be," he said gently. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said enough. That night, Ethan made a call. The next morning, a woman knocked on Clara's door. Sharp suit, calm smile. "I'm a family attorney," she said, "sent by someone who believes in you. You owe nothing." Clara clutched the court papers in her hand and didn't ask who sent her. She already knew. That afternoon, she found Ethan at his usual table. She approached with a small muffin she'd saved for him. "You did this," she said. He looked up, calm and steady. "I just gave you a better sword," he replied. "You'll still be the one swinging it." Clara hesitated for a moment, holding the muffin in one hand and something heavier in the other. Gratitude, maybe. Or something deeper. Fear, too. The kind that comes from learning to trust again. She looked at him and said quietly, "I didn't want to bother you." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't." "But I'm scared," she admitted. He nodded, not the businessman's nod of agreement, but the kind that says, "I see you." And then with calm certainty he said, "You protect her. Let me protect you, even just a little." There was no grand promise, no sweeping speech, just a quiet offer to stand beside her, not to fix her life, but to hold space within it. And something shifted. The changes were subtle at first. One morning, Clara arrived soaked from the rain, only to find a dark green umbrella leaning gently by the back entrance. No note, no explanation, just a gesture. Another day, Ethan quietly purchased Luna's favorite ginger honey swirl cookie before she even asked for it. No one had told him, he just remembered. Kindness began to fill the spaces where silence once lived, and Clara, always so cautious, began to feel something stir. Not in her mind, in her chest. Some days their eyes met across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. A softness, a warmth she had taught herself not to expect. But Luna noticed everything. It was a Thursday afternoon when things changed again. The cafe was busier than usual. Clara was midway through a double shift when she noticed Luna curled up quietly in the corner, cheeks flushed. Something was wrong. A mother's intuition doesn't ask questions. It knows. Luna had a fever. Her skin burned under Clara's palm. Panic swelled in her throat. She needed to get her daughter to urgent care, but she couldn't leave the cafe alone. No one else was on shift. Before she could speak, Ethan was already standing. "I'll take you," he said without hesitation. "You don't have to," she began, but he gently cut her off. "I want to." In minutes, they were in his car. Sleek, quiet, smelling faintly of leather and pine. Clara held Luna in the back seat, whispering soothing words while Ethan drove, one hand steady on the wheel, his eyes flicking to the rear-view mirror. Halfway there, Luna stirred. Groggy, pink-cheeked and heavy-eyed, she looked at his reflection and mumbled, "You're my favorite grown-up." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. His mouth opened slightly, unsure how to respond. Clara felt her heart pull in ways she hadn't let it in years. Ethan didn't laugh or brush it off. He just said softly, "That's a big title, Luna." The little girl nodded weakly. "You give cookies and stars, and you help my mummy." Clara turned her face to the window, blinking back tears. It wasn't just what Luna said, it was how she said it, with certainty, as if it had always been true. Later that night, Clara lay awake thinking about all the ways she'd once believed love had to be loud, dramatic, overwhelming. But here it was, quiet, steady, showing up in the form of warm cookies, silent support, and a man who remembered the little things. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what she was feeling. She was beginning to fall. But peace, like all fragile things, can be broken. It came in the form of a second letter, another threat from Matteo, this time more aggressive. Clara sat alone in her kitchen, the pages trembling in her hands while Luna slept just feet away, safe for now, unaware. She didn't tell Ethan. Again. But he noticed. She was quieter, her laughter dimmer, the brightness in her eyes dulled. He saw her one afternoon, sitting on a bench near the playground. Her hands covered her face, her shoulders hunched with silent sobs. He didn't speak, just sat beside her. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said gently. She said nothing, but her silence screamed everything. That night, Clara found a note tucked into Luna's coat after a visit to the bookstore with Ethan. It was handwritten, no signature, "For the bravest girl I know, and the strongest woman." She didn't need a name. The next morning, she walked into the cafe early. Ethan was already at his usual table, book open, unread. She placed a small paper bag beside his coffee cup. "Apple cinnamon. Still warm," she said. He looked up, a flicker of a smile, until he saw the seriousness in her eyes. "You helped me," she said. "The lawyer, the note, all of it." He didn't deny it. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want it to feel like I was stepping in to fix something you already had the strength to handle." "Then why?" His answer was soft, honest. "Because I care. Not just about Luna, about you." She sat across from him, silent for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out. Her fingers brushed his. For the first time, it wasn't Luna bridging the space between them. It was something else. That evening, Ethan offered to walk them home. Autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet. Luna giggled at squirrels and pointed at pumpkins on windowsills. By the time they reached Clara's door, Luna had fallen asleep in his arms. He held her with ease, like she belonged there. Clara looked at him, not the man on magazine covers, but the man who remembered her daughter's favorite cookie, who left umbrellas by doors, who stood beside her without asking anything in return. "I used to think," she whispered, voice shaking, "that I'd never be someone's home, that I wasn't soft enough or whole enough for anyone to stay." He didn't speak. He just looked at her, really looked. She glanced from his face to the child resting peacefully in his arms. And then, so quietly, it barely broke the air, she said, "But maybe you are." The grand opening of the new community library arrived beneath a soft autumn sky. Children ran beneath trees, neighbors gathered, and in the heart of it all stood the building Ethan had funded. Not as a businessman, but as a man who once sat alone in a bakery window, aching for something real. Near the front, Clara and Luna waited. The little girl twirled in a pink dress, bracelets jangling on her tiny wrist. Ethan stepped to the microphone, his voice calm, but his eyes full. "I built this place for anyone who's ever felt alone. A space to breathe, to start again." He looked down at Luna and knelt, pulling something from his coat pocket. A bracelet, pink and silver with a heart charm. "This is a promise," he said, fastening it around her wrist, "that I'll always be here, Even when things feel scary or confusing or hard, I will be. Luna beamed, kissed his cheek. Then he turned to Clara. You walked into my life quietly, he said, but you stayed loudly, not because of who I am, but because you saw the part of me no one else did. He reached for her hands. Will you walk the rest with me? She nodded. Later, as they strolled home under the amber glow of the street lamps, Luna asleep in Ethan's arms, they passed by the bakery. A small sign hung in the window, written in Clara's handwriting. Home is not a place, it's the people who stay. And this time, none of them were walking alone.